Hey guys, and welcome to the Get Life podcast. I'm your host, Bishop Mish. I'm currently here in Cambridge. Are we in Cambridge?
Yes, we are in
We're
Cambridge.
Okay, that's good. So we're in Cambridge with Nick and Sonia. And you guys are like, who the fuck are these people? Nick is from Toyota.
That's right.
And Sonia is a manga artist who produced the lovely Aygo man. I don't know why I had to look at that manga again.
Because you can't help it.
I can't, it's quite
It's that
awesome.
good.
It is really awesome. I enjoyed it. Let's get straight into the questions. And people are like, Bish, why are you getting all these different car companies here? What's going on? It's like, I enjoy it. It's kind of cool. I saw Nick at MCM Expo and I was like, what is this? And there was a cosplayer, wasn't there? At the Expo, yeah. Which was interesting to see, actually. And there's kind of, in the vehicle industry now, there's this kind of trend going on, especially with like anime-inspired, manga-inspired. You see Honda has done it before with their M4 Voltus, and possibly we'll see it here with the Manga or the Aygo. Anyway, let's get back into the question. So, for our listeners who don't know, can you give us a brief overview of the new Aygo?
Yeah, sure. So the Aygo is Toyota's city car. So it's aimed at those who do more driving in urban environments, or it's their first car. So it's kind of affordable, accessible. But with the new Aygo, we wanted to make sure that it allowed the driver to show their personality. So it's highly customizable. Lots of different designs can be made of the design, both in the exterior and the interior. But it's also, from a more rational point of view, it's got very high MPG, so low fuel economy, and low carbon emissions. So its running costs are really low. So it's affordable, accessible, and allows you to personalise it yourself.
And in terms of the design of the machine, what do you think were the design intentions for the Aygo?
I think it's a car that's it's kind of like an introduction to Toyota. It's like a gateway car to the rest of the range. It might be the first car that you buy and then trade up. But really what we wanted to do with this car, again, like I say, is focus on design, because I think historically with Toyota, it's maybe not been that much of a challenging design. It's been more about sort of fuel and running costs and things, and we wanted to sort of surprise some people. So really, that was the main thing that the company focused on in the development of this new car. But also to bring the technology up to date. I think the old Aygo had been on the market for a long time, maybe 7 or 8 years, and was missing some of the functionality that younger drivers want, such as Bluetooth or touchscreen or satellite navigation. So it was a good opportunity to bring that into the mix for the car.
Hey, so can you talk us through the design process of the car? Because I'm very interested in this, because I myself am a designer, so it's just like, oh my god, it looks cool. How do they get to the design stuff?
I think from what I know of it, the design process for this car started quite a long time ago, back in 2006. So it's been sort of 8 years in the making, and the final design was settled back in 2011. There was 2 competing designs. One was the one that you've seen, the one that we launched, and another one that was maybe not quite so progressive and edgy. So we went with the more challenging of the 2. And since 2011, up until the launch of the car last year, it's been about developing the engineering and the tooling ready to go onto the market. And we went back on the market in last summer.
So I've seen quite a lot of adverts for the Aygo, and I didn't really think too much of it, because to be honest, I like some of Toyota's older adverts, or some they have in America, especially the ones for the Corolla, which they don't sell here, which I'm disappointed about. You have to tell someone in Toyota about that.
Okay.
With their Hatsune Miku adverts and things like that. But I've seen adverts here where they've got like that, that prank advert,
The hat, yeah.
the magic of a hat, and I was just like, oh my god, I've seen that guy on YouTube, and now he's in this advert. For a car that's not even sold in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people pick up on that. And now that I said it, everyone's just going to be like, God, you're saying some stuff. It's like mind blown. Mm-hmm. But what do you think about that? Like,
we've had a lot of feedback. Let's call it that, feedback on the Go Fund Yourself campaign, and I think if we hadn't have upset some people or surprised some people, then it wouldn't have hit its target, which is to try and challenge. So for really one of the big things in Toyota at the moment is really, maybe 20 years ago it was all about trying to please everybody, so you ended up with something kind of average, maybe very well built, very well engineered, but kind of didn't stand out, wasn't distinctive. Now we've got something that stands out, that's really distinctive. Some people are not going to like that, some people are. So it's really about taking a position in the market.
So in terms of design inspirations, what were those inspirations when designing this?
I think one of the design team's key totems for this car really was manga as a whole, the whole sort of world of manga, and to try and bring an element of Japanese distinctiveness to the car, because at the end of the day Toyota is a Japanese company. So the one that Tarai-san, who led the project, has always sort of touched on in presentations and conversations and interviews is Astro Boy. Kind of that small but powerful terminology was what he really used as the centre of the car. That is what the car's all about, really.
When you say Astro Boy, all I can think about is just, well, Astro Boy be flying around with rockets from his hands, and then just put it next to the car. I'm like, does this car have rockets? No, it can't fly. But it looks, like you said, it looks really great. It's kind of badass. Look at it.
If I could chime in a little bit with my observations as an artist, between like Astro Boy and the car itself. I mean, if you look at the character and the artwork for Astro Boy, there's a slick design to it. It's clean lines, but there's also sharp spikes. There's edges. There's round bits and there's edges. There's shiny surfaces, and that's something which I thought really translated really well through to the car. I mean, so if you look at the cross shape, but then you also you notice like the way how the back of it, there's a bit of an edge just there, and the way how, particularly with the red, the bright orange and the black sort of like contrast is very similar to how you would see Astro Boy like presented in manga. With the whole, because his outfit and his overall design is like white, black. It's really high contrast and slick. So that's where I saw it. When I looked at the two characters, that's where I thought, where the similarities really can be drawn.
Another thing about Astro Boy is like he's very cute. He's got them big eyes, and it's like, oh my god. And the car is quite cute. It's small, it's kind of compact, and I don't know. I've seen quite a lot of this car around the streets. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna have recorded these guys to talk about this car. Just everyone in my area has it, and it's just making me feel sad because I'm like, I need to get one now. Were there any design features taken from previous Toyota vehicles?
Exterior design, particularly, it's quite unique to Toyota, and it's maybe one of the first new generation cars, so a full change, where it's really sort of dropped a lot of the design language of the past. So that you wouldn't say that it's an evolution from the first Aygo to the second Aygo. It really is a departure. So obviously some of the technical underpinnings, the mechanical underpinnings are shared with other cars, but from a design point of view, just stand apart.
So what's making this car unique is the design.
The design, the ability to personalise so easily, because not only can you quickly and easily choose when you're with the dealer, when you're buying the car, what colours you want, where you want, with different alloys, different interior, different exterior. But also, you wake up on an idle Tuesday and you go, I've got a white cross, I want a black cross. You can go into the dealer and you can change it. So you can, through the life cycle of the car, so as you own the car, you can change the look of your car if you wish.
I can imagine a lot of people just doing that with their wardrobe. So like, oh, I'm wearing red today. That's quite interesting, and I think personalization is the key in kind of things like this. And to me, I can kind of compare it to, I know I'm getting a bit off topic here, but Japanese architecture, especially with the whole modular thing, taking things out, placing it new. Do you think that would make people buy this car just for that and just keep on going for a couple of years with changing up every time they get bought?
Yeah, I think generally the way people buy cars has changed. So 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, people would come into the car dealership and say, there's so much money and I'll put the rest on a finance deal, and they would pay that for 5 years and then they would own the car, but the car would be 5 years old. Now a lot more people buy a car in a slightly different way, where at the end of 3 years they get a choice of whether to get a new one at the same sort of payments or maybe slightly different, without putting extra money in. So it's more like a cycle, maybe a bit like a mobile phone, buying that in that way. So you could see how people are less focused on owning the metal, and they're more focused on what it says about me as a person. So really that personalisation part is even more key than it used to be.
Great, and moving on to the next question. As you know, we spoke about this like a couple of seconds ago, about the motto, go fun yourself. Yeah. Do you feel that the vehicle kind of encourages the user to have fun with it, and in what way?
I think it's, if you've never driven one, please go drive one, obviously. But it's really fun to drive. It's kind of different from maybe other cars in its class, where they're trying to be like a grown-up, they're like a smaller version of a bigger car. This is definitely a small car, and it's proudly a small car. So it's about lightness, nimbleness in the city, particularly getting in and out of spaces. And it's not fast. in terms of overall performance, but in that sort of 20 to 60 mile an hour speed, the kind of speed you need when you're zipping in and out of traffic, it feels really responsive. So it's certainly fun to drive, and again, that personality you can bring out to everybody else as you drive past through the design.
I see. We're talking about the fact that it is a city car. So which kind of cities do you think it would be most suited to?
Where we see where it sells very well is particularly in urban areas. So you see a lot around London, and sort of on the outskirts of London as well. You know, some of the bigger conurbations, Manchester, Birmingham, but also particularly in European cities like Paris, you know, where traffic is appalling, and it really suits that kind of environment. So we see it in kind of the bigger.
I saw it in my village.
Yeah.
I saw my village. I live in a tiny little village, just like about, well, it's not that tiny, but it's about 8-10 miles north of Cambridge, and it is definitely classed as a village. There's like a couple thousand people at most, and I saw one driving around my village. So it's.
I think that's an interesting point to put across. Actually, is well, there's this first group of people who live in the city, maybe a bit younger, still on design connectivity. Aygo for many years has also sold to an older group who are maybe using it as a second car, or they're maybe retired and they don't drive so much anymore, and they're more interested in it from a running cost perspective. So it's reliable, it's safe, it's cheap to run. Maybe they live in your village.
Yeah, I couldn't see through the windscreen to see how.
Or maybe young people live in your
I
village.
couldn't see the person driving, unfortunately. But it was like, oh my god, it's an Aygo with a cross and everything.
Yeah.
Kind of feel proud about that.
Yeah, I do.
Regarding the countries, obviously you mentioned France, things like that. Is it just exclusive to the European market?
At the moment, yes. So the car sells across Europe. It's kind of the entry into the range in Europe. There's no plans as such now to spread production or sale across the world, but never say never.
Okay.
The Yaris used to be just European, and now it's Europe, Japan, and the US. So these things change.
Of course, because when I saw it and I was like, how come this car is not being sold in Japan? That's one thing that confused me, especially because Japanese road systems are similar to ours, and they kind of drive slower than we do. And most of their cars are Toyotas, and they're really small as well. So
we have a slightly different range across the world. So you already alluded to the fact that we don't sell Corolla here. We actually do sell a version of Corolla in the mainland in Europe. We don't sell it here in the UK. We have a different range in the US, and again in Japan. The market is a very different market in Japan. It's a much older market. In fact, the cost of having a car in Japan, because it is so urbanised, is actually very, very high. So younger people tend to rely more on public transport. So there's less of a youth market for cars. There's still kind of an enthusiast market, so things like the 86,
the racers, the drifters,
and things like that.
But then they're the crazy ones anyway that will go all out to buy something and import something, if they want to.
So you've still got that kind of scene, but maybe your day-to-day guy or girl living in Tokyo, public transport is more where they're at, and they may, if they're going out to the countryside for the weekend or on holiday or to visit family, they'll rent it, they'll borrow a car.
Rent a car. That's something. As soon as you said rent a car, I was like, oh, Toyota's like one of the biggest rental companies in Japan for renting cars.
Exactly, yeah.
Sorry, everything just kind of related to Toyota.
You know your Toyota stuff. It's very impressive.
What do you think defines the car itself, whether it may be the design, functionality, performance, etc.?
It's really around that design. So the car is defined by its distinguishing feature, exterior design. So its distinguishing features in its exterior design are absolutely central to what the car is all about. But also there's kind of an underpinning, maybe where with other manufacturers you'll see a really, really crazy design, but actually from a mechanical reliability point of view maybe it isn't there. Maybe their mechanical reliability is not as well thought of as Toyota's, but you can kind of always rely on that, and that's a pretty worthy thing, and it's a little bit boring maybe, but it's not that boring when you're sitting by the side of the road and your car's waiting to be picked up by the breakdown truck. So it's got to work, even if it is still all about design.
Okay, so some listeners might be thinking, well, I'm new to cars, why should I buy this one? Like, I don't know any. For me personally, I don't know much about cars. So if you want to sell me a Aygo right now, what would you say?
I would say if you're the kind of person who wants to have a car that says something about you particularly, so it's like a status thing, you want people to go, oh, what's that? So you want to stand out a little bit, but also backed up by the fact that if you're a first car, it's cheap to run and it's cheap to insure, because money is always an issue for younger people, but you're not giving up. It's not like a functional car, it's not like a basic car. You've got lots of creature comforts in there, so like I've said before, Bluetooth, you've got USB connectivity to your iPhone, you've got sat nav, you've got all the safety systems that you need. So really, it's like got loads of grown-up stuff in the car, but it's also squarely aimed at you being able to afford it.
So what is the retail price basically?
Okay, the car sticker price of it is $7,995. But what we see is a lot of people buying them on like, again, similar to like a mobile phone, like a monthly payment, and they can start from about £80 a month. So over a 3-year period, so £80 a month buys you a brand new car.
So yeah, there are people who are going to be looking up the design team, Terra-san, you know. What advice do you think they would give to the designers of the future? I myself am a designer, so I don't know what I'm...
Knowing Terra-san's part of a wave. I don't want to say new blood because he's been there quite a long time, but he's got a new view for Toyota, and really he's both well versed in the way Japan works, but he's also very outward looking towards particularly Western influences and culture particularly. So he's open to taking on ideas, whereas maybe some other designers in the past maybe were very sort of ensconced in the very Japanese way of doing things. So he's got that balance. So I would say knowing him a little bit, he would be all about where you take your influences from and not being closed-minded to different cultural influences from across the world.
So another thing I've noticed, I've seen a couple of YouTube videos of him talking about the car. He's always smiling. Is that how he is?
He's a very smiley guy. Yeah, he is a very smiley guy. And one of the challenges we always find when we bring, say, an engineer or a designer for interview is because the linguistic references are so different that sometimes that personality is really hard to get over through a translator. Whereas with Terra-san, he brings it forward himself, doesn't really use a translator, his English is really, really good, but also his time spent when he was younger in Australia was kind of ensconced him in how it all works. And yeah, he's a very smiley guy, and he'll talk about his car for hours and hours and hours.
A lot of designers will do that. They're really proud of their creation.
Definitely, he calls it his baby. That's not weird at all. But yeah, he calls it his baby, and he definitely takes ownership of the car. Really nice guy.
Do you think he has his own Aygo?
Oh, he has his own Aygo. Oh yeah, he has his own Aygo, and I think he has a name for it, something like Geisha's Kiss, something like that. Which is like, and he's had a special personalisation, which is it's kind of black with a red cross, with a red underbody treatment. It looks pretty cool.
So he's the only person in the world that has...
Not necessarily the only person, but he was the first person.
Oh, okay.
So.
Right. I can just imagine him just driving around Japan in one of those.
Going
with the window down.
Yeah.
So that's enough about the design of the car and whatnot. Let's just move on to the more fun question. I'm not sure if you watch any anime. I know Sonia probably does.
Sonia is the expert.
But which kind of genres of anime do you guys enjoy? Because I know personally, I'm not really a big fan of the shonen or like cute shoujo shows, which is kind of weird for me personally. Because a lot of people are like, "What is going on?" But what kind of anime do you guys?
I mean, the thing is, it's like I'm a bit old school, because I'm quite old. So I actually really liked the really classical sort of like shoujo stuff, like Cardcaptor Sakura.
Oh my god, yes!
Oh yes, yes, exactly.
I watched that like a month ago, and I just saw Sakura, and I was like, oh my god, she's so cute!
Yeah. But the thing is, it's amazingly deep as well, that series, and it tackles, it is about a little girl and adventures and so on. But she deals with many complex relationships alongside. So it's sort of like, juggling other people's feelings whilst trying to save the world at the same time is always a bit tough, but it's like, as in for me, that was like to me, it doesn't even compare with Sailor Moon, like, Cardcaptor Sakura all the way, it's like, it's just so beautifully done, and plus, I love Clamp, and most of the stuff that Clamp does, but aside from that, I do, it's hard really, because I like really fun kind of schoolgirl, almost like moe kind of things from time to time, if it's got good gags, like Azumanga Daioh. Azumanga Daioh is very good in that respect, sort of like situational comedy and sort of like, quick fire fun things, like, I think they even had like, one sketch about how there's this one girl and she's really ditzy, and she's in class and her eyes are just, going around, and it's like, what are you doing, Osaka? Oh, when the dust gets in your eyes, I'm following it around. It's little stupid things like that, that I quite find quite funny. But, I do also really like epic kind of like I do like, you know, big fancy looking things. The thing is, it's just that at the moment, recently, I've not had a lot of chance to watch more currents of anime. So, you know, some of my favorites will include really old things like Slayers, you know, and you know, that's like the ultimate comedy fantasy sort of thing, and it's ridiculous as well, you know. So it's yeah, I mean, there's that, but then, you know, I mean, recently I've been I quite liked the reverse harem sort of thing as well, like All Around High School Host Club. I mean, I've got that DVD collection, and it's ridiculous and stupid, but you know, it's good fun. That said, I also have the Trinity Blood box set because I really like sort of like gothic dark things. Of course, you know, of course I have to mention Cowboy Bebop, Trigun, you know, Hellsing, all of those things. Yeah, of course I've watched them all, and I like those ones as well. But yeah, I mean, a bit like you, I'm not really so much a fan of the typical sort of shonen thing because I find it a bit too formulaic and also very, very slow. As in, you know, particularly if you're watching on anime, they'll replay the bloody scene, like, you know, like 5-10 minutes of stuff, you know, the good stuff from the previous episode, they recap it, and then they do maybe 5-10 minutes more of actually new stuff, and then it's just like, oh, okay, look forward to the next episode. Oh, great, you know. So for me, I find a typical sort of shonen, really long running series really kind of irritating to watch. So I'd much rather watch like a really good, like 13 episode thing, like Kino's Journey, for example. That's existential. It's beautiful, and it's all like, you know, it's very neatly passed, and that's it. And of course, you know, I'm gonna have to mention Kill la Kill, just because, you know, I have to say that some of the influences on the manga that I was dealing with, particularly, you know, with a lady and giant sword things and stuff like that, you know, because I'm a big fan of Kill la Kill, and I have in fact cosplayed as Satsuki Kiryuin before, you know, because obviously I would suit her, and I did.
How did you get the eyebrows?
Oh, you draw it on a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is, you know, I drew it on. I didn't stick anything on, if you know. But yeah, I am assured that even without a costume on, I can look very much like her. So
I think for me, I was a complete novice about this stuff until I met Sonia, and I'm still a complete novice. But I mean, you know, two things for me really. That when the first visuals came through of the manga, I just thought, I don't know what style it is, but I think it looks awesome. And the second thing that kind of hit me when we went to Comic-Con was what an amazing subculture it is. Like it's really, you know, people really into their hobby and really into this. Is just, it's amazing to see, and you maybe don't see that with other things that people are into, whereas with this, they're really committed, and I think that's really fun and interesting and kind of, you know, positive. It's a positive thing.
On the other side, like in Japan, you know, people who kind of love anime or kind of obsess about it, they're not really seen in a positive light, you know, otaku culture.
Yeah, they're called otaku, or they're even worse, they're hikikomori, which...
I've never heard of that one.
Oh, where they lock themselves away and do nothing but that. You know, it's like, you know, the stories about South Korean gamers who will actually die from just like not eating because all they do is just stay at home and just play video games. You know, so a hikikomori is essentially somebody who locks himself or herself away completely and just does that. You know, so yeah, there is some negative connotations in Japan for some of these people who take things to extreme. I said that Japan is a country of extremes. As in, people there, they're into something, they're like really into it. They don't just have a casual interest in it. Whereas here, there are some people who are really into things, but a lot of people have a casual, positive interest in geeky things. Like, you know, everyone, in fact, you know, for example, if I were just to drop mention like Doctor Who, everyone in the UK knows about Doctor Who. And anyone who's a fan of Doctor Who will also know about anime or manga, because that's just how it is. I mean, I've done stuff for mainstream fashion magazines, for example. I did some illustrations for Marie Claire, where they were describing, oh yeah, and like Mark Jacobs looked really manga and anime this season. Here's some illustrations done in that style. They actually hired me to do illustrations. You know, so, you know, in the UK, the term manga and anime is, as in people know what the words mean, you know, so it's like a casual positive interest, and so that's the reason why I think particularly for things like Comic-Con and so on, you don't get just the extreme obsessives. I mean, they're the ones that, you know, will dress up in like, you know, fully articulated 6-foot-long wingspan things. You know, it's like I'm not throwing any shade in that direction, because I myself have competed and stuff. I've hammered armor out of copper for some of my costumes. Okay, trust me, you know, I know how it's like.
Like I said, really committed.
Yeah, really committed. But yeah, there are, you know, it's in here. It's not seen as a bad thing. You know, that's kind of like one of reiterating.
And moving from anime to games, and this is mainly a question for Nick. Have you seen this car in any sort of video games in the future?
I mean, Toyota has had tie-ups, particularly with the Gran Turismo series. There's been, you know, there's a car that was launched in the game before it's actually physically ever been told that we're going to launch it in reality, and we're not, by the way. That's not me confirming a world first. But yeah, the FT1 in Gran Turismo, that was kind of like the first time a car's been launched in a video game before it's been launched in real life. But this particular thing, no, this was definitely something that was driven from the UK actually, the manga. And whilst it'd be awesome to see the car in a video game, there's no plans to do so.
You know, I remember playing Gran Turismo 3 10 years ago, and it was just like, first car, yeah, it's like, oh my god, yeah! Mainly because it just looked so cool. And, you know, I was thinking, maybe this car. But, you know, I don't know.
Maybe. I think, you know, we've certainly like gone on a journey with Gran Turismo, like you said, it's in there. Supra is the big thing, GTA 6, Hachiroku from back in the 80s is a cult car in video games too, and now the FT1 as well over the last sort of year or so. So
we need to put a Hilux in every video game out there.
Never say never, you know, but yeah, there's no plans for the Aygo.
This is a question for, like, I know you're an artist, Sonia. You're not a designer, Nick.
I'm not, sadly.
But if you could design any sort of product on of Toyotas, which one would you redesign and mess about with?
I'd like to bring something like the Scion BB, the square sort of big car that's sold in the US, and it's sold over in Japan as well. It used to be sold here under the Daihatsu name, which is also a Toyota brand. Get yours now. Sadly, Daihatsu had to stop selling cars over here about 5 years ago. But yeah, I love that kind of. Before I worked Toyota, I've never really understood the whole JDM thing, so Japanese domestic market stuff, and you see it over here. So like you might see like a Copen, the Hatsu Copen, a small coupe, and you say that looks really out of place because it's really small. It's got a tiny engine. You got this kind of really tall European guy in it like this, but then you see it in the Ginza in Tokyo and you go, that makes perfect sense. So I think, you know, with the way that actually smaller cars are becoming more important to the European market, it'd be about bringing over some of that essence of Kai cars particularly over to the UK. Like, I've kind of, in my 8 years time with Toyota, have really grown quite fond of like looking at Kai cars. They're just completely different from what we have over here, you know, where size equals status. Over there, it's more about small cars are clever and usable.
If I had to do anything design related with Toyota, I mean, the thing is, it's like I did mention like one of my favorite, as in I will always be in awe of how the Hilux can live through everything. It's just everything, you know, because I've seen, you know the episode in Top Gear when they just put it through absolute hell and it still worked. Yeah. Oh, my respect for that car. Plus, you know, I actually spent many years growing up in Bangkok in Thailand, and they drive a lot of Hiluxes there because you need to, because of the potholes and the flooding and all that sort of stuff, you know. So for me, it was an everyday thing. I just saw Hiluxes all the time, you know. So it was really nice to see, you know, presented on Top Gear, like, you know. So I would love to, you know, I don't know if I would actually change anything about it, but I would love to decorate the hell out of it. You know what I mean? Okay. As in, I would do proper, like, you know, graffiti, sort of like, and like characters all look. Can you imagine a Moe Hilux? Yeah, yeah, like all the characters from K-On! Or something, all over the front of it, or you know, and it's like sparkly eyes, or maybe like, you know, like a Yonkoma like comic all around it on different panels. That's what I would like to do. I mean, that would definitely turn heads, you know, a Hilux with like, you know, cool comics all over it.
As soon as you said K-On!, I was just like, I need this.
Yeah, Moe Hilux. What could be that? Moe is.
And that's the next thing we're going to do.
Moe, by the way, is a term for, you know, like cute girl. You know, so it's essentially like a essence of cuteness. It's sort of like kawaii cute girl, and generally being kind of like, you know, that kind of look.
Kind of thing,
yeah. So it's essentially sort of like, like a Moe Hilux.
Thank you for the translation.
Yeah.
To be honest, in regards of which car I would kind of redesign, I would say I'm not a big fan of it. It just looks weird, and even the design, like the idea of hybrids, just freak me out. Like with the Lexus cars, I'm like, yeah, hybrids, they're cool. But then I look at the Prius. And
why is that?
I don't know. It just, for me, it looks like a taxi. Like, do you know what I mean?
Is that because everybody uses them as a taxi? But there's some really good reasons why the car is that shape, you know, and for aerodynamics and lots of other really good reasons. And
I don't really care about that. I like stuff that's aesthetically pleasing. You see what I mean? Like, I look at those Lexus cars, I'm like, whoa, nice. Do you know what I mean? And they're just badass, but Prius is just a Prius to me. Do you know what I mean?
So if you had a chance, you'd make a sexy Prius.
I would. I would design a sexy
They do
Prius.
exist, especially in Japan. Japan domestic market is body kits galore. Yeah, body kits galore.
In regards to the car, where is it actually manufactured?
The car is built in a factory in the Czech Republic, so it's a European built.
It's not like, has nothing to do with the UK or anything.
No. So
Because I know there are some
Yeah.
Toyotas that are manufactured
the
here.
Toyota Auris is built here in the UK, and the Toyota Avensis is built here in the UK. But this one is built out in the Czech Republic.
Okay, I see. And is it a mass-produced thing, or is it just going to be limited edition, or how's this going to
So
work?
the car that you see in the Manga, the orange, which is called Aygo Excite, is a limited edition grade of the car. And what you'll see is over the years, as the car gets a bit older, we'll freshen that up. So it might be a new colour, slightly new alloys, treatment, maybe new interior. You know, keep changing it all the time. So whilst this was the launch special edition, only a couple of weeks ago we launched the Aygo X-Wave, which is the car but with an electric retractable roof. So for the summer market, you know, it's kind of like an Aygo convertible. We keep bringing special editions to the market.
So, like, what makes that unique in comparison to general?
You've got the unique exterior bodywork, so the paintwork. You can't get that colour of orange on any other grade of car in the Aygo range. It also comes with the front X, which is like a high gloss X, whereas the absolute standard car comes with just like a kind of basic matte. And then in the interior you have inserts. You can choose either like an orange insert, you can choose a black insert, or you can have whatever insert you want really, just to kind of bring the colour through into the interior. So really that's what makes it different. And also it comes with unique alloy wheels, so like high gloss black alloy wheels. We launched the car in the middle of the World Cup, and we actually launched it in Holland, and it was perfect because it was like 15-20 of these cars going around Holland, which is because it's the national colours of Holland.
Yeah.
And everybody's going mad for the car because it's like Holland's car. So it was a good time to launch it as well.
A couple of years back, I've seen like the previous generation Aygos being used in like a football game.
Yep.
In Top Gear.
Yep.
Do you think the car would be capable of doing so?
Yeah. I mean, the car is eminently capable of doing that again. Might be something that we talk to the Top Gear guys about in the near or distant future. But that idea, we kind of started that idea with Top Gear. We did football, and then other manufacturers got on to what a great idea it was. So you saw Volkswagens and Suzuki's playing hockey, or Kia playing rugby, or whatever. So maybe that kind of idea is done, and we need to find a different idea.
I think you should suggest to Toyota what cars could survive a superhero's daily life.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I like that.
See whether or not an Aygo can sort of like, can it race through burning rubble?
Absolutely.
Can it sneak up behind a giant monster?
Can it carry two massive swords?
Can it carry some massive swords?
Yeah.
I think Top Gear are missing the trick.
Yeah, absolutely. Although Jeremy Clarkson dressed up as a superhero is not something I want to see.
No.
There's just a...
I could just imagine there's an old man in underpants. It's not good.
No.
It's not a good image.
Yeah, just stop talking about that. It's just in my mind, I can't take it out. Yeah, so we've seen this car at many expos, MCM, dealerships, and I like the fact that it looks cool and it's kind of free from congestion charge and whatnot. So what are your favourite...
I've just driven up to Cambridge in one, and for me, I love music, so the fact that I can plug in my iPhone, I've got Spotify running on my iPhone, and it just works. I just press a button and it's there, and I'm just streaming music over the net is kind of cool. And the fact that it's all there in a really cool looking touchscreen right in front of me, which, in this sort of segment of car, this class of car, that's quite unusual. Like maybe 2-3 years ago, that kind of feature would have been like the preserve of Lexus or Audi, whereas now you can get it on a car that's like $8.5 grand. So for me, that's great. But also, I think my all-time favourite feature of the new one is actually the engine, and more specifically the engine note. So it sounds really naughty, whereas most cars are trying to make cars quieter. This has actually got a very distinctive sort of 3-cylinder roar to it, so it sounds like half of a V6. So I love that. I think that you feel like you press the accelerator, you see the revs rise, you can hear the noise, and then you slam it into fourth, and it's a fun car that you feel like you're driving something maybe a bit more powerful than it is. So yeah, for me as a petrol head, the engine.
I just like the overall look of it. I mean, the thing is, it's just so distinctive. You look at it, you can't miss it if you see one coming.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason why I just think it looks amazing. I love the look. That's my big thing. More than anything, it just looks so good.
Hey, and other than this car, which one is your favourite Toyota product all time? Personally, for me, it's the Corolla, and I'm only gonna say that because of the of what what America did years ago with the Hatsune Miku kind of cross promotion. I was like, oh my god, anything with Miku, I need it, and I'm upset that I can't buy one.
You can't buy a Corolla. Really has affected you, that, hasn't
and it looks so nice as well. It's like, I need to go to America.
You need to go move to America.
But at the same time, I'm like,
Can you get a Corolla in her hair colour? That sort of like teal.
Yes, you can.
I
Yes,
didn't know
you can.
that. That's crazy.
I think they stopped the promotion now, but there was like
Peppermint green Corolla. That's brilliant.
Yeah, they look.
That's the kind of thing I'd expect, like a Vespa to come in. I mean, that's my dream kind of little like bike thing. But yeah, green
I think my favourite Toyota from history is 2000 GT, James Bond's car. Can't beat that. And I suppose my favourite current Toyota is probably the GT86. I mean, it was one of the first jobs I had when I moved into my current job to work on GT86, and I was lucky enough to be the first person to drive the car back to the UK. So we had a launch in Barcelona, and I drove it back overnight, 20 hours straight. Me and two drivers brought the car back, and I was mega excited about it because it had such a long period of sort of hype, and everybody was like, no, it's not going to be as good, and it just killed it, absolutely killed it. Everybody sees that as a great enthusiast car. So yeah, GT86.
I think, as you gathered, a special affection for the Hilux, simply because because living in Bangkok, that was the only way to get around reliably at times, and I have many happy memories of when I was little and I was going to my riding lessons, and I'd have a friend pick me up and we'd all go ride in the back of one on the way to the stable.
Awesome.
Yeah. You're there, you're riding in the back of a Hilux, and then you're driving around, and you get to the stables, and you jump off and you get and you go. It's
a big thing.
Yeah, I know.
And they're built.
Yeah. They're awesome. They're awesome cars.
So yeah, we've seen various different ways Toyota advertise the Aygo, from the X-Smart promotion to the Magic of the Hat promotion, that one, Visible.
Indeed.
So which one is kind of your favourite out of all the current adverts? And we're going to include the manga in this as well.
I have to say the manga.
Oh well, yeah, obviously.
I have to say the manga. Obviously, the
manga's being biased.
To me,
okay, cool.
But it's like, yeah, well, it's. I mean, that's I'm just going to say this, all right? That took a lot of work.
It did take a lot of work. Yeah.
Right?
Hats off to Sonia for it. 'Cause, like I said, when I saw it for the first time, I was just like, that's so awesome. I just, and this is not a slight to you, but I didn't think it was going to look as good as that, and it just was kind of like super fast.
That's
Anything
that's
that.
lovely. Thank you.
Anything that we thought possible. So yeah, it was so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just quite it's fun, but it's also quite stylish.
Yeah,
it's a stylish and subtle sort of like campaign.
And it's really authentic because it sits to, like we say, Terai-san's a massive manga fan. Manga was inspired the design, so it kind of drew from something that's at the very centre of the car. And people who've seen it just go completely see why you did
The
that.
thing is, like, when I was at MCM, because I'm not sure if you can get this other than at MCM or not.
It was limited edition, and they're all gone.
They're all gone. So yeah, I'm quite lucky to get this. If you guys got this at MCM, you can actually tell that it is well made. You've got this kind of what's it called, tracing.
Oh yeah. We were talking about how do you make it feel kind of sexy, and it's like, tracing paper overlay. Oh yeah, let's do that.
It's amazing.
There was no kind of expense spared, because it would have been terrible if we'd have worked with Sonia really hard to get this really amazing story and this really amazing illustration and then put it on. So we really wanted to make sure that it was delivered well, both that and in the film as well. So we worked really hard to. Sonia worked really hard to get that all working. So Sonia and a small army of other people.
Yes. Yeah.
So Sonia, in regards to the manga, can you give us a brief overview as to what happens in Adventure 1?
Okay, so essentially, it starts off with there's a lady, she's an office lady, in an office, attending this rather boring business meeting, when all of a sudden, her phone flashes and it's like, there is a emergency call, she's needed, and she just goes, oh, okay, right, all right, guys, see you later, I've got to take this call. She dashes out, she goes into her normal Aygo, drives to a super secret base, and then where she, tells the technician, hey, tell me, what's up? And the technician's like, oh, look at the screen, there's a giant kaiju, there's a giant monster rampaging around town, we need you to go and do something about it. And she's like, oh, okay, fine then. And so she gets herself suited up, ready to go. The car gets converted into a flame-proof kind of thing, and then she's like, yeah, okay, this will do. She grabs it, she dashes out to the location. There's even a special, find the current imminent kind of superhero threat on her dashboard, and it tells her where to go. So she drives through all the rubble, cool, and she's like, I'm gonna sneak up behind the monster, and then she pulls out these 2 giant blades from the front X grill, and she uses it to cut the monster down in mid-flight because the suit is like, jet powered and stuff, so she like slices through the whole thing, and it's like she just lands the other side, and she's just like, yeah, okay, and it just disintegrates behind her, and then she goes back to work like as if nothing happened.
So how long do you think that would have taken her just to do all of that? Because if I was her employer, I'd be like, okay, you've been gone for like 4 hours.
Oh, no, not 4 hours. This sort of thing would probably take about, half an hour, 45. I mean, if a super secret base is nearby, which it probably is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And another thing is, I'm looking at it here, is the kaiju attacking Toyota's head office?
Yes,
That is
yes,
true.
it is, yeah.
Well spotted. Well spotted.
Actually, there's a whole bunch of Easter eggs throughout the whole comic for fans of Toyota to look out for. I mean, so even near the beginning, if you see the silhouettes of the cars going by, you'll notice there's a few classic cars in the selection. So if you have a little look here, you see, so there you go. So there's one. I can't remember the exact models that I used.
Land Cruiser.
Yeah, is it? Yeah,
Celica.
yeah, that's it, yeah. So there's that, but also if you
We
look
had a
at
lot of fun
in the
on
Super
the-
Secret Design Lab, there's a couple of concept cars in there as well.
Yeah.
That's been on show. So again, these are the little things that we put in there.
Yeah.
Even the license plate of the car is a homage to the Epsom factory.
Yeah.
So it's
I see.
as in I tried to think, okay, well that's where a license plate would probably be that kind of like makeup for it. So yeah, there's a few little things in there just to for the Toyota.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun when the film came out because in the film there's even more like little sort of references and stuff, and people are like that's a Celica. No, and people are like not only that's a Celica, but that,
so
that
for example,
generation of Celica with that engine.
What car is the kaiju trashing about?
Yeah,
Actually, I can't remember
exactly.
which car we went
That's
with in the end.
Celica, that
That's
is
a Celica. So you just have to look out for these little things. They're all over the comic.
The only thing I noticed was just the head office thing. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that
'cause
is.
Yeah, believe me, sometimes, some days I wish that a monster would attack.
That's kind of dark. When you said that.
Depends how dark a mood.
Fair enough. In regards to this, you mentioned that it took you tons of time. Doesn't make any sense. It took you a long time
while
to do this.
yeah.
So from initial concept to actually producing this, how long say it took in terms of
Now,
hours?
in terms of hours, I know that. God, how many days? How many
I
days
don't know,
was I end up charging you for?
Yeah.
Quite a lot, but.
I remember briefing. We were sort of had the initial sort of brief conversation about it in
It was a few
August.
months before, yeah, it was in
In
summer.
August, yeah.
So we started talking about it in August, and then the final thing came out around about October. But it was only in the last month or so that things got really finalized. So the last month or two was when I started getting all the illustrations done. I think what made it take a bit longer was that, you see, with the process that I would normally do for making comics, I would normally just draw things straight, but because I was working with an animator as well to produce the animation, I had to make sure that actually everything was separated out into every single different layer. So each page, instead of it being a typical 4 or 5 layers of me, when I start tweaking, adding the shading and so on, each page had 20, 30 layers, just so that the animator could have something to work with and move and like layer on top and so on. One of the things that was different about this project when it came to creating a manga was because I was working with an animator, instead of my usual process where I would have maybe at most 4 or 5 layers of the file when I was drawing, so there'd be one area for inks, one layer for my tone, one layer for all the speech and so on. I actually had to separate it down to something like 20 or 30 layers per file, simply because the animator needed to have everything absolutely separate so that he could move bits independently of each other, or zoom in on one, or make it larger or make it smaller and so on independently. So that was essentially what sort of stretched my time on this a lot more than I would have normally done on a typical sort of like comic or manga project. But aside from that, the design process of it was very similar in that I would come up with the storyboard. I thought here's like some thumbnails, and then me and the animator worked together to sort of like figure out, okay, let's do this shot, let's change the angle here, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, all in all though, the bulk of the work was in the last, I'd say, a couple of months just before the release of the comic at the Comic Con. Definitely, as is always the case for I think anyone, but particularly for creative professionals, the amount of hours per day you work on a project exponentially increases the closer you get to the deadline. So it started off being okay, a casual look at it. it, a couple of times a week, to, oh my god, working on this non-stop, going to bed at 3 a.m. every night type of thing, and this is not easy considering that I also have a toddler, so it's juggling, childcare and doing a rush work on a comic is quite hard.
It was one of those things as well, because we kind of started the conversations in August, as I said, and then all of a sudden we started to have a conversation, me and the art director on this was a guy called Guy Bird, and he said, well, why don't we go to Comic-Con, why don't we launch it at Comic-Con? And I was like, okay, and we went from sort of having this sort of soft launch kind of idea to like, right, it's got to be ready for that day, must be all ready, and so 3 weeks before we had like, oh
right,
god,
it's gotta be done
have we got the film?
Yeah.
Have we got, are the media going to be there? Are the media not going to be there? It was, oh man, it was difficult. And also in that time we had to brief the guys who built the stand.
Yes, the stand
I think
well.
another thing that for people who went to Comic-Con, we put a lot of time and effort into the stand as well.
It was the most sexy stand there. Seriously,
was the coolest
because
stand,
I
yeah.
exhibit in another area of the stand because I work in a comic group. So we have a creator table in the comic village. But the moment I went over to your side of the convention, I was just like, oh my god! It stood out so much compared to everything else in the room. It was amazing.
It was such a cool thing to work on as well, because like say when you turn around the corner, when you came into the hall and you looked at it, and you just went, yeah, that is exactly what
it's
we
like
wanted.
there, and it's
Yeah,
like
so-
it's like sexy, it's slick, it's like
it
it's
looked
so
good.
stylish. Oh, I loved it.
And it did sort of generate some big interest over the weekend as well, so we were really happy.
Well, this interview wouldn't have happened if I didn't see the stand at the museum, to be honest.
Stand did its job. That's
Yeah.
the main thing.
And another thing is, you had cosplayers there. Like, did you guys think about that as soon as you saw? Oh yeah, MCM. You need cosplayers, or was it like random?
It was kind of one of those things. I think you brought it up at one of the first meetings. You said, "Oh yeah, well if we launch it, maybe we should do
you should get a cosplayer to do it because that's the thing,
And then we kind of we auditioned a few people, and the lady that we went with eventually was just perfect.
Yeah, she was so professional.
She was
So-
scary.
She was scary.
I reckon she really could have killed you, but not just you, but all of us. She was great actually, and the work of the costumier as well was really high quality.
Costume designer was amazing.
We kind of went down
The work she
to
did.
a really low level on the detail, to make everything as
Yeah, we tried.
authentic as possible.
I think one of the things that kind of impressed me about the cosplay was the weaponry, because I was just like, wow, it's just like in the manga, which kind of really blew my mind. The fact that someone can pull swords out from a car. I'm guessing the one that we're going to see today doesn't have that.
Sadly not. No. It's had its swords taken off,
But-
See,
It's not road legal.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing I will tell you about, because that was a key part of the design process and the whole idea behind the story. Because the first thing I thought of the moment I saw the car was I saw that X grill at the front, and I was like, God, it'd be really cool if they could pull out a couple of blades out the front of there, a bit like them scissor blades from Kill la Kill, a little bit like that. That would be really, really cool. That was the number one thing that came to my mind. The second thing that came to my mind was, we've got to have a heroine who's got those sort of sly-looking, kind of crafty eyes, because those eyes match up with the shape of the headlights on the. So if you look at the car, you see that the headlights have got this sort of like sleek-looking triangular shape, and I really tried to make her eyes have the same shape as that headlight as well. So that was the next thing. It was these little things like that. They that really fed into the whole idea of the whole storyline and how it works.
So that's one of the big things on the design of the car, because within this area of the market, those kind of sleek look headlamps, they're not cheap. They're actually like a level up from like a standard headlamp. One of the great things about the design team was they went, no, we have to have those, even though they cost, to keep the design aesthetic of the car. Because otherwise it would have had like really big halogen headlamps like every other car. These like really tight, sleek projector headlamps were designed so every car's got, every version.
It says on the manga, it says here, Adventure 1. Is there plans for Adventure 2?
There could very well be. We've got this car now for 5, 6, 7 years. Usually is about the average time generation of a car stays for. So we've got. I think what we did with Adventure 1 as a group is we kind of reached out into an area where no other car company is really talking to these people, and we can do something that's really authentic that hopefully they enjoy, and that means that they interact with Toyota a bit more and hopefully think a lot more. Yeah, I'd like to do it. I'd love to as well, because I've got a lot of ideas of things that she could do. Working with Sonia would be awesome.
So maybe in future, if there's a new update, like you say, a new new color theme or whatever, then maybe we can go into that color.
I see, because like before I even picked up the manga, I was just like, okay, I was hoping there'd be a Gundam in there, because the first thing you think of car and machinery is well, Gundam. Well, no Gundam. Is there any sort of kind of people that there is maybe some sort of Gundam sort of inspiration?
Is this
like
a
a giant robot?
Suggestion, request,
Yeah,
or
well-
demand?
Well, that's the thing. I pitched a few different stories, and we went
Yeah.
with this one.
Yeah.
One of my stories did include some mecha stuff in there, So.
Gone with that.
Oh no,
Honestly,
but
that's
Giant
what-
Monster! Come on, Giant Monster!
Yeah.
Giant Monster's pretty cool.
I think this is
Sometimes
the
better.
thing now. What's to stop us if we want to really continue with this, and like we said, we really do. Is do we have to keep it to this heraldry? End up with some kind of Aygo manga universe.
Yeah, I could do.
So we could take on all different types of styles, and but I think we need to look at what we do next, and really working with Sonia, because really she's our expert, and she's done such a great job on this that we couldn't think of anybody else that we'd want to work with. on this, so. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. If it had been someone who maybe wasn't as ensconced in this area, or maybe someone who hasn't got as good a skill, then it wouldn't have worked. So I think we were obsessive about quality, and we were obsessive about the details, and that requires people who know what they're doing. So enter Sonia.
I don't know, I'm just really amazed by how this looks and feels. Oh, cool. You see what I mean? Like, personally, I'm not really a big fan of manga. This sounds so weird coming from me. I don't like to read.
Oh,
just
see,
like-
I'm the opposite. I prefer manga to anime usually. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's just an artist.
It's not just that. It's not just that. It's the way it's the way you consume it. I like reading manga more than watching anime. It's kind of a bit weird.
Okay, no, that's understandable, but for me, it's just like, how am I going to do the voices? Because every time I read something, I have to make the voices.
Oh, you think about the voices? Yeah,
it's kind
yeah,
of like when you're reading
Sound
to a
effects and
child,
stuff.
and then they're like, oh, Mum, Dad, just do a voice for that character. That's how I feel.
Okay.
So, mainly because that's how I was as a kid. I used to just bug my parents and be like, oh, Mum, Dad, read it as the character. And they would do a really shoddy job at it. If they're listening, I'm hoping they aren't. Because they'll ring me up and be like, George, what's going on? No, but seriously, it's even the animation. I quite liked it, but I kind of preferred the manga. This is like the only instance where I'm like, this one.
Because to be fair, the animation had to take its work from the manga, and the animation was never meant to be a full-blown feature thing, because the time and resources required to make it a full-length feature thing is just that's ridiculous. You need a whole team of people working for several months, essentially the animation has always been just to showcase the comic, more than anything really. It's it's in this case, it really was taking it from the manga, it's I don't know. It's for me like it was the storytelling part of it, and then just seeing it. But also even the way how the animation was presented, it was still presented like it was a comic. So you'd have the car driving across the panel, you'd see panels whizzing by underneath, and so on.
I really like that.
So,
I think it's, for someone who isn't in this world a lot,
page animated, like a page being
I really
turned.
like that because I thought it was really different. I was very very happy.
So, in regards to the manga and actually, of course, the car, you feel that it was a successful kind of campaign to do this?
I mean, from a business point of view, definitely it brought us to the attention of some people who don't get talked to by car companies, really. And maybe they aren't, drivers now, but they will be drivers in the future at some point. And so, if you patronise something that's important to them, I think that is... I can't say, oh well, it brought us 17% XYZ, but I can say, as a whole campaign, it stood apart from the main Go Fund Yourself Rahat campaign. It was something very specific to this area, and I think it was definitely worthwhile. And it kind of, in the same way that the car surprises people because they go, Toyota shouldn't do that, kind of thing. This was like another one of those things of, oh, Toyota's got a bit of personality, a bit of flair, and just brings it to life a bit more. So I think as a campaign, there's some numbers behind it too, which we were very happy with. But more overall, the feeling of the campaign was that it reached out and maybe changed some perceptions of what Toyota is in an interesting young group.
I mean, the thing is, I was really pleased with the way how I was, I was consulted about how to present this and how they actually really wanted to listen to me when it came to how to make things look authentic. Because I mean, one of the last things, the thing is, it's like, okay, I'm a manga artist. I'm not originally Japanese, but I create manga. So I have had all sorts of mud thrown at me because it's like, oh, I'm not by blood Japanese, therefore, how can I create, proper manga or whatever like that, so I know about the whole authenticity argument. But the thing is, I do know how to make manga. I do know how to make manga look good because I understand it. I'm a big fan of it, I study it, it's been with me ever since I was little, I grew up on this stuff, so please don't confuse me with just somebody who comes from another school of thought or another school of artwork and is just copying the style. Because you know how it is when you see somebody who's not quite used to doing it try to copy what manga looks like, and it generally tends to come out looking quite terrible. And the thing is, it's like, what I want to say is that, I felt really glad that Toyota were trying to listen to people who knew what they were talking about. Because the last thing we want is one of those, when Garnier did their manga hair like a few years ago, it's or listening to Avril Lavigne going kawaii, super kawaii. So do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I understand.
It's the last thing we want is a marketing campaign that is bastardizing the thing that the very thing people love, or making it look not presenting a good version of itself. So I'm really glad that with this whole look and the whole look of the comic and so on, that they really allowed me to essentially go forth and do something that paid homage to Kill la Kill, homage to Attack on Titan, homage to Initial D, that had that proper kind of look to it, so I was really pleased that, that it was really important to them that it should look and feel and should read like like a good manga should, so yeah.
I think also, particularly younger consumers, younger customers, they have a very good bullshit meter.
Yeah. Yep.
And they have a really good bullshit meter. So brands that, like you say, who bastardize or try and borrow, stuff from a
jump on a bandwagon without doing their research.
It can end up being thin and brittle and actually be a turn off. So I think, speaking as a professional point of view, I think this is the way that more brands should go, and we will go, is to try as much as we possibly can to. It's giving a voice to someone within that subculture and showing how cool that subculture is. So it's like patronising, not patronising. Patronising that, be it art, music, stuff with Lexus, with design. It really is about making something as authentic as it possibly can.
If you're going to do it right, if you're going to do it well.
It's not we really want to be part of that subculture. What can we kind of get away with? It's we want to be part of that subculture, so we find something within that subculture who can tell a story that they want to tell with us, and we help. So just amplify.
I was talking to a couple of members of my team before obviously recording, and there's something that they mentioned about the kind of idea of doing this. Where did it come from?
I don't know.
Well,
I know.
Okay.
Because a lot of because we've noticed before that there was other companies, mainly investors and whatnot, who I think jumping on this kind of idea of, oh yeah, and inspired. And then, we see this, and we just don't know what to think of it. Where did that come from? Was it, did you see other companies do it and say, hey, I want to do that? Or was it just like, what?
I mean, to be honest, it was one of my jobs last year was about how to launch this car and make it as cool as possible. That was kind of my job. Not just mine, but, across the company, there was various people working on this. But in one particular area was... It seemed a shame that we never used the fact that Toyota is a Japanese company and we have a car that's inspired by manga.
Yeah.
Manga is a Japanese construct, therefore it works perfectly and it's authentic. It's not like Garnier jumping on to sorry Garnier,
yeah.
but it's not
But
Garnier
Toyota,
jumping onto a bandwagon of something that they have no heritage, no authority to speak about. the brand Toyota does have something to say.
There
about
is a
this.
history of Toyota in manga. I mean, like I mentioned already earlier, Initial D, come on, you know, it's like Toyota's all over that, and that was 30 years ago, you know, so there is that history.
So I think, you know, that's where it started, and maybe it started as kind of an idle sort of, well, you know, we've got all this background with the lead guy on the project being a massive manga fan, car looks manga inspired, and we're a Japanese company that's kind of like the stars align. And then the really hard work came in finding someone to work with, which is Guy and Sonia, to bring that all together. So, you know, I think it started as an idle thought, and then it became hard, but it was worthwhile.
Why the hell not? Why aren't we doing this?
And then about 2 weeks before the launch bit, why are we doing this again? No. Yeah,
you told me that you had an interesting meeting with some of the head of art, like and they were like, "What? What is this?
Yeah.
This is weird, but it's cool."
Yeah,
all right.
It was one of those kind of moments where you think, "Oh God," and my job flashes before my eyes, and they go, you know, with all due respect to my superiors, you know, they're older guys, maybe who have not really understand or even experienced manga.
What is Pokemon?
What is this all about?
What is this Tomodachi
But then when you show it to them, and maybe some of them have, you know, there was one guy who said, "Oh, my daughter's massively into this. She's 13. She loves all this. She draws and this and the other. This is great. This is like completely. How did you manage to do this?" And then it's all about suddenly a guy and people. So, you know, really, it's something that sort of group of people, maybe at the top of the business, just wouldn't maybe think about, but you need people who are maybe more in with that crowd to be able to find the people who can do it. So yeah, that's why we do it.
Yeah, and if his daughter's like 13, 14, she's going to be driving soon.
Exactly.
She's going to be driving soon.
First car, what does she want?
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Well, she'll probably end up with an Aygo anyway.
Yeah,
but, you know,
she's the daughter of a Toyota executive. Yeah.
Getting them young.
Yeah.
Getting them young.
That's it. Honestly.
Okay.
Obviously, thank you guys for being
Welcome.
on this podcast and
Very
stuff.
welcome.
And yeah, just so people know, the next episode, I don't know what it will be. I forgot, guys. But anyway, I'll probably add that in. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode.
Thank you.
Bye.
Afford to be different. From only €12,625, go fun yourself with the new Aygo from Toyota.